the best thing about this is that there's a beautiful PowerPoint presentation that you have, and I absolutely love PowerPoint. So let's get right into it.
Sure, yeah. Well, Arcade, this season, we actually have a big update. It's quite cool. So I'm going to go over with you guys what we have for you. First of all, we had an overall, two goals for this season. First of all, we wanted to improve some of the accessibility of the arcade mode. And, of course, the big one is we wanted to address the difficulty. These two topics, we got a lot of feedback on them through the last few months on Reddit, the forums, and everything. And so for this season, we had time to address some of those feedbacks. So we'll go through them with you guys. About the accessibility, so this is all about how do players access the content, what content they can play in arcade, and just like the ease of understanding everything that's going on.
And before you get into the actual changes, is there a reason specifically why these were the two main kind of pillars that you guys wanted to address?
Clearly, it's mostly a matter of like the volume of feedback that we've received. There was a lot of other things that we could have done, but these two topics were especially true for so that we can really improve arcade right from the start for this season, and then we can see if some other topics that we wanted to tackle are still going to be relevant or not, maybe after this kind of update.
Okay.
So these two can change a lot about what the player's perception is going to be on the arcade mode.
Awesome.
So the first thing that we've done regarding the weekly quest, so this is one of the examples of the quests that we've had in the past, and with the magic of PowerPoint, we're going to get an update.
Oh, what a smooth transition.
Wow. I'm sure you're proud of me on that.
That's actually very professional.
So what we did is that we've reduced the recommended gear score of the weekly quest to 108. So we basically went down full gear rarity. Before it was 162, now it's 108. So we've done that especially to make it so that more players can enjoy this content. It was being at 162 reduced a lot of the amount of players that could access the content.
Yeah, so you're lowering that entry to barrier, basically.
Exactly. That's what we're doing. And at the same time, by doing this change, we're actually reducing the overall difficulty of the weekly quest, because the gear score that you bring in has debuffs or buffs depending on the score you have when you go in. So now if you're 180 and going in 108, then you're going to get more buffs than you were before. So we are rewarding you for having brought your character full gear way more than before.
Awesome.
The next one is a small user interface update that we did. So we added the objective of the chapter during the loading screen and as a pop-up message when the chapter starts. So this is basically because in the past we've added two new objective types in arcade for the weekly quest. We've added a survive, like we see here, and we've added the kill target objective. So with these two, we now have three. So the default eliminate everybody, the survive and the kill target. The problem that we were facing is that you wouldn't know which kind of objective you were going to face until the actual encounter starts. And we all know that sometimes
the encounters can start right away.
Right away,
and
yeah.
So you got to be ready to go.
Exactly. You can have a bot right in your face from the start. So we wanted to give players a chance to actually know what's going to happen.
Yes,
Mentally prepare, yeah.
Okay.
So we have it in the loading screen right here, like we see, survive at the top left. And then we get this pop-up that appears that is bigger than the objective text, so that you can quickly catch it with your eyes, and then it disappears so that it's not in the way anymore.
Nice.
So those are our two main topics that we address for accessibility. Now we're going to move on to the difficulty, which is a pretty big one. So basically, if we go right to the point, we've rebalanced the whole impact of the player's gear score regarding the rarity levels when they're playing both random arcade and weekly quests. Beautiful sentence written here. What does it actually mean?
Please elaborate. Yes.
It's quite simple. Players before they're bringing a gear score into one of the 5 different difficulty levels we have, and they're getting buff or debuffed based on that. So if you're under the gear the recommended gear score, you're getting debuffed. You're getting penalties to both damage output and damage input. And if you were going in if you were going in a rarity with over the gear score over the recommended, you could still be debuffed based on the difficulty. So the higher difficulty ones, we were still applying some debuff even if you were over the
Just to make
recommended
it extra
gear score.
difficult, but you
Exactly.
guys-
It was
okay, I see.
it was a way to it was a way to control the difficulty levels. We really saw through the data that was too much. Those two last difficulty levels, so the epic and the legendary ones, were really too hard. We were seeing that people were not completing them as much as we wanted. So we've addressed that right away. What now is the impact for a player is that no matter what the rarity quest he's going to go in, if you're under the recommended gear score, you get penalties like before. If you're on par, so if you're right on the good amount of gear score you need, no penalties at all. And if you're above the recommended gear score, you'll always get bonus to damage dealt and damage received.
And so for those people that aren't necessarily that familiar with arcade, but that means basically for legendary, you only have two options. You have on par or below.
Actually, no, because in the legendary quest, the recommended one is 144 for the recommended gear score, and you can actually reach 180 if you craft your gear up to the max.
I see.
So you can actually, in that case, also gain a lot more damage output to increase your effectiveness in those quests.
Okay, awesome.
So that really changes the whole game for arcade in terms of difficulty. That's applied for all the rarities, so everything is going to get shifted down a bit. So hopefully we're going to see a lot more people completing quests overall. And what this has as a side effect, let's say, it's a change that we did, is that to compensate for that big of a change in difficulty, we're actually going to give a little bit more health to bots as the difficulty levels go up. And they're also going to gain a slight attack boost. So they're going to deal a little bit more attack than they were before. So that's just to compensate for that big difference in how the player is getting buffed or debuffed depending on the gear score he brings in arcade.
Awesome.
Yeah. And the other thing we've done for the arcade mode as a whole is that we've addressed one of the big issues we had with bots where sometimes they can be impenetrable. So right now, you're going to see bots that are much easier to attack, to chain, to apply your special moves and everything against. So that goes for block, dodge, parry, deflect. They are much less effective than before.
So this is, I guess, in relation to what the players want and what the shift is in terms of the meta, which is, you guys want to promote attack more than just defense, right?
Yeah, it's the same kind of issues that the fight team is facing with the meta in player versus player game modes, and it's a thing that we wanted to address as well in arcade. And then we can see it as a potential test bed for bots in PvP as well. If player feels that arcade is a good spot for bots right now, we may go forward and try to test these changes in PvP as well down the line.
Awesome.
And so, the last thing I have to share with you guys today is about the weekly quest rotation. So every week up to now, every week we had a new weekly quest that was offered to the player. Starting this season, we're actually going to start reintroducing old quests that we've did, so previous quests that were there before. But we will still be doing new quests, that's for sure. So every season there will be a selection of new quests that will come in for the whole community. But you will see those previous weekly quests that we've done come back. And that changes is mostly to make us give us the ability to work on content like we're doing right now, like updating the arcade mode as a whole and not just tackling always new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives the people a little bit more of an opportunity to play actually those quests if they missed one week or something.
So right now it's a mentality of once it's out and it's gone,
it's
you
a one
can't
and done.
replay it. So it's a bit sad for us because it's content we've actually worked on. We want the players to be able to enjoy it. And like you said, those who missed it, then they could replay it. And
you also have an opportunity to address any feedback on those quests
Exactly, that's
as well.
the big thing that we can do. We, of course, can go back, see the feedback that we've received on those quests, address anything that's really major, change modifiers on bots, change the nature of some bots, stuff like that. We can do anything on those. For sure, they will keep the same narrative that's around, but we can address some of those big points that people had feedback on during those quests. So that's pretty much it for arcade, for the big things for arcade.
For year 3, season 2.
Exactly, for
Sakura.
year 3, season 2, Sakura.
There you go, Sakura. Awesome. Well, if there's nothing else to add for arcade, we're actually going to have the community